When I was younger, I used to go to the library many times after school. This takes place when I was a freshman in high school. Back then, I did not have access to a computer with internet at home, so many times, when I was walking home from school, I would stop at the library. There was one that was roughly halfway back home from school and only a couple of blocks out of my way. I would do homework, play games on the internet, and go on Facebook and stuff. Most days, I would be there for a few hours and then walk the rest of the way back home. I went there on average maybe 2 or 3 times a week, but sometimes more or less. So, one day I went to the library after school and logged on to one of the computers. The library was pretty large, so large that it had 2 levels. Usually, there would be quite a few people there, but they were pretty spread out. I was on the computer and remember that I went on Facebook. When I did, I saw that I had a new friend request. It was from some random guy I didn't know. The profile picture was of a car, and I didn't recognize the name. But back then, I would automatically accept every friend request that I got. I didn't even care if I knew the person, so I accepted it and thought nothing more about it. Well, probably just about a minute after I accepted it, the guy sent me a message saying, "Hi." I responded back saying, "Hi," and was now wondering who he was. He responded, saying that he was in the library with me right now. This seemed kind of strange to me. I was not aware of knowing anybody at the library. I had never seen one of my friends from school there. The guy said that he was on the other side of the library and upstairs. I didn't really know what to think of it, and I don't remember exactly what I said, but the guy kept talking to me on Facebook. He soon started to ask me personal questions, so I decided to stop responding to him because he was coming across as a creep. I went on another internet tab and ignored it, but I kept seeing more notifications pop up that he was sending me more messages. This was really starting to creep me out, so I closed everything, logged off the computer, and then left. I had no idea who it was in the library. I walked straight home and hoped that I wouldn't encounter that man anymore. A couple of days later, I went back to the library again after school. Like most times, I found an open computer and logged on. I went on Facebook and saw several more messages from the guy. I didn't respond and just ignored them. He must have seen that I had logged on to Facebook. I know it shows other friends that are currently online. So he started sending me more messages. I didn't bother to look and continued to ignore him. Several minutes later, though, I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder. I looked, and it was some guy I had never seen before. He was much older than me, had an uneven gray and brown beard, and was wearing a green hat. He then asked me why I wasn't responding to him. I was so surprised that I didn't say anything. The man then asked me to go with him. He said that he was leaving and motioned for me to get up. I said no to the man. He continued to stand there for about a minute before walking away. But the man only walked over towards the front of the library near the doors. I watched him sit down in a chair near the entrance and face me. I wanted to leave, but he was sitting right by the doors, and I would have to walk past him. He was just kind of watching me, and I felt like if I left, he would follow me or something. I stayed at the computer for a while. Every time I looked over towards the doors, I saw that the man was still there and often looking at me. I called my mom. Luckily, I had just recently gotten a cell phone. I told her about the situation and asked her to come and pick me up. She agreed. She had just gotten out of work, so it took her about 20 minutes to get there. But when she did, she walked into the library, and then we were both able to leave. When we got near the doors, the man kind of walked away. After leaving, My mom called the library and reported the whole thing. They were very quickly able to find out who the man was. The police even got involved, and the man ended up getting banned from that library. So, I was able to go back not too long after, and I never saw him again. Thankfully. Bodleian Library stood as a beacon of knowledge in the small town of Oxford. However, its history was marred by tragedy and mystery. Legend had it that the library was built upon cursed ground where restless spirits roamed the earth seeking vengeance. One fateful night, Luna, a dedicated librarian, found herself alone in the library after hours. As she went about her duties, she heard faint whispers echoing through the empty halls. Brushing it off as her imagination, she continued her work until the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Suddenly, the books on the shelves began to fly off, pages fluttering in the air as if guided by an unseen force. Terrified, Luna fled to the safety of her office, only to find the doors sealed shut by an unknown presence. Panic gripped her as she realized she was trapped inside the library with something malevolent. Desperate for answers, Luna delved into the library's archives, uncovering the dark history of Bodleian. Centuries ago, the land upon which the library stood had been cursed by a vengeful witch, cursing all who dared to trespass upon it. Determined to break the curse and free herself from the library's grip, Luna embarked on a perilous journey through the hidden chambers and secret passages of Bodleian. Along the way, she encountered the spirits of those who had perished within its walls, their anguished cries echoing in the darkness. At the heart of the library, Luna discovered the source of the curse, a forgotten tome bound in human flesh, its pages teeming with dark magic. With trembling hands, she began to recite the incantations inscribed within, hoping to banish the curse once and for all. As the final words left her lips, a blinding light enveloped the library, and Luna felt a sense of peace wash over her. When she opened her eyes, she found herself standing outside Bodleian Library, the curse broken and the spirits laid to rest. From that day forth, the library stood as a symbol of resilience and triumph, a testament to the power of courage and determination in the face of darkness. I used to work at the local public library when I was in my early 18s. I'd work the night shifts as my second job at least 4 times a week. After my first job, I'd get there at 5 o'clock and would work till closing time at 10 o'clock. I would also be the one to lock up the place after closing, but I wouldn't just leave right after the library closed. I'd have to shut off all the computers, do some cleaning and organizing, stock the shelves with all the returned books and DVDs from the day, take out the garbage, and only then could I leave. It was a Friday night approaching closing time. Most of the other library staff was gone already. It was just myself and one of the female librarians left. I had made a couple of last call announcements to the remaining library patrons, alerting them that the library would be closing soon. I was already cleaning up the place, trying to finish up early so I could leave and just start my weekend. The only other employee still there said goodbye to me as soon as the clock struck 10 o'clock. I announced on the intercom that the library was closed. The 2 guests that were left got up from their tables and started packing up their things before leaving through the door. After that, when I saw no one else in the building, I locked the front door. I proceeded to start fixing all the chairs to be neatly tucked under their tables. Then I started emptying all the garbage cans, and when it was time to bring them outside to the dumpster on the side, I unlocked the front door again and brought them out. It was quiet outside. The library was kind of tucked away from any main roads. When I came back inside, I locked the door again. Now all I had to do was restock all the returned books and DVDs from the day. I grabbed the 2 boxes and started with the DVDs, which was easier since the DVD section was smaller. It took about 5 to 10 minutes. During this time, I thought for sure I heard something come from one of the book aisles. I started walking through the aisles till I found an open book laying on the floor, which had clearly just fallen off the shelf. I put it back in its place, and for a second, I stood there and just wondered how that could have happened. I went back to work, and after finishing the DVDs, I took the box of books and started putting them one by one back on the shelves, going in alphabetical order. I started with the A's. The books in the box were sorted in alphabetical order to make it easy. As I worked my way down the shelves, trying to bang this out and go home, I heard another noise nearby. 2 times in less than 20 minutes. That was no coincidence. I set the box down and started walking through the aisles of books again. I found another 2 books on the ground in another aisle. Someone was in here. I walked out to the open area with all the tables and such and yelled out, "Excuse me, the library is closed." There was silence until I heard something from across the library from the children's section. I approached the noises, and it started to sound like some rabid animal making growling sounds. I also heard books being thrown onto the floor. It was coming from one aisle. As I built up the courage to peek down the aisle, I saw some woman wearing a nightgown throwing random books off the shelf, making these disgusting animal-like sounds. I didn't say anything. I turned and ran to the office where we had the phone. I didn't have a cell phone at this time. I locked the office door and closed the blinds to the window, then I called 911. I reported that there was some sickly woman in the library and I think they should send an ambulance. They asked if I had approached the woman, and I said no, she looked like she could be dangerous. When the operator asked me if the woman was still in the same spot, I opened the blinds and I screamed because that woman was right on the other side of the glass looking in. Her pupils were so big that she looked demonic. I said to the operator, "She's right outside the office." The woman started to bang on the glass, screaming gibberish. She tried opening the door, and when it didn't open, she turned around and sat on a chair facing the office. The operator asked me to keep the blind open and watch her. The woman was wobbly as she sat down, so I noted she was definitely high out of her mind. 2 police cars and an ambulance showed up to the library. The woman was put in handcuffs because she tried fighting the police officers, but nothing she was saying made any sense. She was put in the back of an ambulance and was taken away. I never found out what the hell she was on. I don't know how she got inside, maybe while I was taking the garbage out, or maybe she was inside before I even locked the place up. Either way, it definitely made being in the library alone after closing pretty unsettling from there on out. This is something that happened a long time ago when I went to my local library. It was probably the year 2000. I remember that I was going there to get some educational books. The internet was around back then, but you couldn't quite just Google whatever you wanted to know like that. The more common method for me was to go to the library and check out books on the topic. So anyways, I drove down to the library, which was maybe 10 minutes from my house. I went inside, and it was a little bit later. I think they closed soon. I just know that I was about the only person inside. The library was somewhat large, and I made my way to the aisle of bookshelves where I was looking for. Then I began trying to find the best books to check out. I spent a few minutes looking at books and comparing. During this time, after a while, I heard someone approaching. The library had been especially quiet. Everybody knows libraries are usually very quiet, but with hardly anybody there, it was to another level. The footsteps sounded like they were about to enter the aisle that I was in. So naturally, I looked up. But when I did, I didn't see anybody at all. It was like they had stopped right before they reached the corner of my aisle. I thought that maybe it would be a librarian telling me that the library was closing soon or something, but no, nobody seemed to be there at all. I then went back to what I was doing. I was very focused on comparing the books because I wanted to get the best ones. Several more minutes went by. Then I remember casually looking up and glancing over to the end of the aisle. When I did, I suddenly noticed that there was a woman standing there. She was almost leaning around the corner and looking at me. This woman appeared to be a little bit younger, had blonde hair, but was wearing these strange-looking sunglasses, and she was looking right at me. I looked away because it was just really strange and focused my attention back down on the book that I was holding. But when I did, I realized just how strange this was. I also realized that this was likely the same person who I had heard approaching, but that was like 5 minutes ago. Had she been standing there this whole time? I looked back up again from the book and glanced in her direction. She was still staring at me and hadn't moved. I kept looking at her, surprised and confused. I didn't know what to say or do. Finally, as I was looking at her, she suddenly moved back very quickly and went out of my sight. I then walked over to the end of the bookshelf where she had been and looked out. I was wondering where she had gone, but I couldn't see her. She likely had gone to another aisle. That little situation was very strange. I then hurried up and finished selecting books. I picked out 3 different books and then headed to check them out. When I did not notice seeing the woman at all. I then checked out my books, left the library, and went home. Now, I had these books for about 3 weeks and then had to return them to the library. I remember that night I knew that I was going to be in the area, so I brought the books with me. The library had a drop box outside, sort of near the side of the building. You could just drop the books out there at any time of day. The library did not have to be open. So on the way home that night, probably around 10 p.m., I stopped by the library. I parked in the empty parking lot and walked up to the drop box with the books. Now, to the right of the library building, kind of near the drop box, there was a little park area. It was just a few picnic tables and a little open space of grass. Beyond that was a bit of a wooded area. When I reached the drop box and put the books inside, I noticed something. There was a person on the edge of the woods that seemed really weird. When I looked closer, I saw that this was a woman with strange sunglasses, the very same woman who had been staring at me in the library before. I was so creeped out that I instantly turned around and ran back to my car. I drove home and didn't go back to that library again for months. I did return, though, and never saw that woman again. I still don't know who she was or what she was doing. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to watch the latest videos.